I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were three people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
I am not gonna weigh in on the guilt or the innocence of Kyle Rittenhouse. There's a lot of YouTube channels doing that, and you're in a bad spot if you're coming to PSYCH for legal or political commentary. What I do want to talk about is the psychological makeup of somebody like Kyle Rittenhouse. What leads a kid, 17 years old, to grab an AR-15 and head to a riot? When I think about Kyle, there's kind of three buckets of behavior that I think are interesting and worth discussing here. The first is the gun. How does a 17-year-old kid get an AR-15? Like what drives that behavior? And I've looked and I wonder about his childhood, and I can't find much online. And so there's a lot of theories, right? One theory is, look, he was very active on social media, definitely pro gun, pro police force, and maybe there's theories about him being involved in militia. That could have been it. There's no real evidence for the militia piece of that, but that's a theory. Another theory is he grew up on the border between Wisconsin and Illinois. There's a lot of hunting there, and he could have just been exposed to guns in general, too comfortable, too familiar with guns, and wanted a big gun. And it could be as simple as that. My guess, though, is that you have a kid that is not very grounded, feels inferior, low self-esteem, and having an AR-15, that is a differentiating gun. That is a superior weapon. It's big, it's heavy, it's powerful. And if you don't feel good about yourself and you have this gun, I think that there is a piece of that which sort of fills those gaps for you. I think he probably immediately felt like he had more personal agency and control in his life because he had a weapon that was so powerful. The second piece of his behavior that I find interesting is his general involvement in the protests. Like his interest in the protests, I think, is odd for a 17-year-old kid living 20 miles away. I understand that for our country, people were interested in it and talking about it, but what percentage of 17-year-old kids that went to his high school, for example, were making that trek up to Kenosha? I would guess not very many. And he was going up there. He went up there the day before to clean up graffiti. He was very involved. It makes me feel like at home or at school, he was pretty untethered. I don't think he wasn't grounded, didn't have a lot to do. And so my guess is he spent a lot of time online and was reaching out for ways to have his life mean something, ways to be involved. And I think he got hooked up online with people that were pointing to all of the distress in Kenosha. And he thought, here's how I can be somebody. Here's how I can add value. And I think that drive, the drive to be important and significant in a life where he doesn't feel super significant, I think that was the driver. And most importantly, on the day of the riots, he goes into the crowds with an AR-15 on his chest and a medic kit. And his goal there is to protect the businesses and to protect the people. He's labeling himself, you can hear him talk about it.
People are getting injured, and our job is to protect this business, and part of my job is to also help people. If there's somebody hurt, I'm running into harm's way.
He wants to be a hero. It's my opinion that he lacked sort of true self-esteem. He wasn't grounded enough to know who he was, and so he was desperately trying to define himself, define his life, trying to make an impact. And because of whatever content he was consuming on social media or wherever, I think that there was this, in his mind, was the way that he could add value. And so he engaged in super risky behavior. And there's two concepts in psychology which I think are important here. The first is imaginary audience. So as kids, as adolescents in particular, we believe that we have this huge audience of people that are always watching us. Like we're always on stage. This is why as a kid you kind of feel insecure. You think people are constantly watching you. And so with that imaginary audience, you want to act a particular way to sort of show to that audience, how cool or how powerful or whatever you are, right? So there's a piece of, I think he felt like he was living a movie a little bit. What would a badass guy with a gun do during a riot, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, as far as his ability to take on risk, there's a concept in psychology called personal fable. This was coined back in 1967 by David Elkin. The idea here is that in adolescence, so let's start here. In adolescence, you are moving from being a child where you have very little skill, and then all of a sudden, when you turn into an adolescent, all of a sudden the world opens up to you, and you have to try a lot of new things. And in that process, like 13 to 17, you fail frequently, and that would be devastating to somebody's self-esteem. So psychologically, you sort of buoy your self-esteem by having this personal fable, which is that you are powerful, you are unique, nothing bad's going to happen to you. You believe that psychologically. You can do different things, you can overcome challenges, and you sort of think in your mind, it'll all work out. I'm special, I'm unique, I'm powerful. As you move through your life and you get older, 18, 19, that personal fable drifts off a little bit because you reality test and you develop organic, true self-esteem. But in that period, and I believe that Kyle was in that period, he was living off of this personal fable. Here I am, I'm special, I'm unique, I've got my gun, look how powerful I am. And I think that all of those things together allowed him to engage in this incredibly risky, dangerous behavior. So that's my reaction to it. I'd love to know what you think in the comments. Like and subscribe.